Roll call, Sherry. Here.
Jason Keogh,
Here.
Rick Knotts. Here. Ashley Pasquale. Here. Robert Smith,
Here.
Chuck Vaughn,
Here.
Scott Welty,
Here.
and Mark Z.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, and like to open up to call to the public. Anyone? All right. Going on to minutes. Approval of the September 24th minutes. A motion.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September's meeting.
Second.
Chuck, thank you. Everybody approve? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Communications, Mr. Keene.
Thank you, Chair and and board. Friday evening concerts in the park during October were a huge success with over 500 attendants each of the Friday evenings. I would like to thank the sponsors for those events: Anderson Automotive Group, Mojave State Bank, Delbert Days Rodeo, and Truly Nolan. I'd like to send a thank you to the Parks and Recreation and administrative staff for designing and decorating the Parks and Recreation float for the London Bridge Days Parade. And thank you to the lifeguard staff for helping out as participants on the float. The float did win first place in its division. Recreation staff members assisted with the firefighters' charities with both the annual Scarecrow Contest and Pumpkin Festival, raising over $10,000 for the Firefighter Charity Association. Youth Winter Break Camp will be held at Smoke Tree Elementary on December 26th, 27th, and 28th, as well as January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Registration for camp will begin on November 19th. The Western Welcome Club donated $1,000 to help with the scholarship needs for our winter break camp, so big thank you to them. The Youth Talent Show took place on October 25th under the bridge with 18 participants. Thank you to all the youth that participated and showed off all their great talents. There was a boys soccer tournament that took place at Cypress Park last weekend with 17 teams participating, 11 of which were from out of town. So we're definitely getting some other exposure for the park. The Lake Havasu High School swim team will be sending 8 athletes to Mesa, Arizona on November 1st through the 4th for the state swim meet. So congratulations to those athletes. The Boy Scouts will be using the pool on November 3rd for their annual swimming and life-saving merit badge. The football and cheerleading end of the season pool party will be held on November 10th. As a reminder, the pool is closed for Veterans Day on November 12th, as well as November 22nd for Thanksgiving. On November 23rd, there will be a Whoville swim party open to the public from noon to 4. And on Sunday, November 25th, from 10 a.m. to noon, the pool will be open for the dog swim. And immediately following the dog swim, the pool will close for annual maintenance and will not reopen until Monday, December 4th. Some upcoming events at the community center is the Educational Tour Group Women's Expo, November 7th. A Gem and Mineral Show will take place on November 10th and 11th. The Western Welcome Holiday Boutique, November 17th and 18th. And the Havasu Art Guild Craft Sale, November 24th and 25th. A few upcoming events in the parks. There's Lake Havasu Grand Prix, November 1st through the 4th, will be taking place on the island, the property next to Crazy Horse Campground. Chillin' and Swillin' will be November 3rd at London Bridge Beach. Moving for Memory Walk, November 3rd at Rotary Park. Great Outdoors Havasu Style will be on the parcel of McCullough and Quario. That is also November 3rd. The Corvettes on the London Bridge will be November 10th on the London Bridge. The Desert Warrior Challenge, November 10th at the Sarah Park Rodeo Grounds. The Water Lantern Festival, November 10th in Rotary Park. A Veterans Day parade will take place on Main Street in McCullough on November 11th. The 30th annual Turkey Trot will be November 17th on the Island Walking Path. The Youth Court Softball Challenge will take place November 17th at Rotary Park. The annual Swim Across the Channel will be November 24th in the Bridgewater Channel. The Christmas Boat Parade of Lights, November 30th and through December 1st in the Bridgewater Channel. And the Triple Crown Parade of Lights Baseball Tournament will take place November 30th through December 2nd at Rotary Park, Sarah Park, ASU, and Dick Sant Ball Fields. On October 23rd, City Council approved the Recreation and Public Purpose lease with BLM for the Armory site at Sarah Park. This lease was updated to remove a few dates for development, as well as making language consistent with the Sarah Park master plan. I know there was a little bit of confusion seeing an article in the paper and kind of maybe curious of what exactly that was. It was to renew the lease with BLM, and we just needed to update some of the language. And I do not have a CIP update for tonight, as our first set of CIP meetings are scheduled for the week of November 12th. That concludes my report. With that, I'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. King? Chuck?
Yeah, the Armory, is that the one that where you come in off McCulloch in that? Is that the one building there on the left?
As you're coming in off of McCulloch, it would be on the right across from the dog park.
Across from the dog park,
Correct.
okay. Yeah, it was that spot that I think some of the equestrian people wanted to kind of use as a parking lot or something like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
same site.
Right.
Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Public hearings. We'll have a presentation on discussion on the Water Conservation and Reuse Project presentation from Jeremy Abbott, Assistant City Engineer. Jeremy?
Good evening, Chairman, Board. Thanks for having me. I'm going to essentially give you a quick overview of this project that's currently out to bid. It is the last major piece in what's taken us minimum of about 5 years to put together. And the overall effort is to effectively use all of our effluent that we treat and generate from our wastewater treatment plants. So to just kind of give you a quick overview of that history, what you'll see here are different projects that we've worked on over the last 5 years. Started off with a reclaimed water management study back in 2014. That was done with a WIFA grant that we had received through the state, and essentially identified all of our potential sites and really looked at the balance, the water balance. So how much water do we have available, and what do these parks, what do these green spaces require as far as needs for irrigation? So you can see up there that we've done improvements to our pump stations, we've expanded storage, so on and so forth, to the tune of about $4 million, with this next piece being the largest component, estimated at just under $2 million worth of work. And I'll go through and show you here in the next slides which parks, which green spaces are going to be affected by this project and what we anticipate doing on a general level. So on this map here, you'll see really kind of a diagram of our entire reclaimed water system. And what I want to point out is you see the island, Mulberry, and the North Regional Treatment Plants, and they're all connected by this line. And that's true. We do have force mains that interconnect all of our treatment plants, which makes for a lot of ability to move water from one location to another, gives us a lot of flexibility, but also creates a very complex system as well. So on here you can see where Rotary Park is in relation to this vicinity map. If you want to just quickly click through, it shows all the different parks here. Cypress, ASU, Jack Hardy. So this project is really going to be focused on London Bridge Beach, Rotary Park, Cypress Park, the ASU campus, and Jack Hardy Park. Those are the 5 main park green spaces that currently are not irrigated with reclaimed water. So from our island wastewater treatment plant to the London Bridge Beach Park, this yellow line here is really just showing the alignment of a new force main. So we're going to be physically connecting the irrigation system of London Bridge Beach to our pumping and treatment facilities at the island. That will give us the conduit to send water to London Bridge Beach when it requires water for irrigation. So we will actually be constructing this line along McCulloch and then down the roadway into London Bridge Beach Park. You know, the park will always be open. We are not planning on closing the parks at any time during any of this construction. There might be some minor delays and some areas of parking or access that might be deferred or shifted. Rotary Park is second on the list. This actually shows the location of a reservoir. So in order to irrigate Rotary Park, because of the amount of water that park requires and that the limited time that we have to actually irrigate that park, we have to build and create a reservoir to store that water. So this slide actually shows the location of that reservoir being more or less tucked away, but it is in the vicinity of the butterfly garden. So to kind of give you an example or perspective of what this tank is going to look like, we have a rendering here. Go to the next slide. So this concrete tank will actually be partially buried. About 6 feet of it will stick up above the existing ground at the front of it. But as you go back behind the tank, the actual grade slopes up towards the wall and or to what is Smoke Tree Avenue. And then what you see, this large box up above and then the stairway accessing on top of the tank are the pumping facilities. So with that storage, we have to be able to pump and pressurize the irrigation system at Rotary Park. That's what you see. That's, again, a rendering of what it's going to look like. But the whole idea is to tuck it away in the back corner of Rotary Park. We did look and discussed many other alternative locations for this reservoir, and this was the best location. As an example, one of the other alternate locations was really centralized in the bowl area. And as you guys know, the bowl area is actually used by a lot of kids for practice, whether it's softball, even soccer, and when it's not being used for sports, people use it for other activities as well. So we did not want to build a large concrete structure in the center of our bowl, our grassy bowl area. So we felt the best location was to tuck it back away in the corner of the park. Cypress Park, when we constructed that, we built it to, again, anticipate the use of reclaimed water. So all the irrigation system, everything we put in is already purple pipe, purple irrigation heads, and we're simply making some connections just outside of the park to transition from domestic potable water to our reclaim system. The yellow line that you see on this diagram shows that the force main, a new force main that's going to run from just to the east of the Mulberry wastewater treatment plant up to the park and connect to the park. The ASU ball fields, we have a line coming off of Daytona, runs along the property, and we're going to hug the top edge of the track there and tie in to the irrigation controls for the fields and for the landscaping for the ASU campus. Now, you may ask, how do we get from Cypress to ASU? Well, we actually had already installed a force main many years ago, anticipating of connecting these facilities at some point in time. So we already have a force main underground in Daytona that we're going to be tying into that will transmit this water to all these locations. And the last piece is Jack Hardy Park. We will be using some of the existing piping under the turf area, but in order to get all of the irrigation on reclaimed water, there is some trenching that has to be done through the center of the park. The whole intent here is to limit the disruption and the destruction to our parks. We've worked very closely with our operations and park staff in developing the plans and the design for all of these connections. And another important point to bring up is that we will be doing dye testing. We'll be doing cross-connection testing to ensure that we have no chance of, say, connecting a drinking fountain to the reclaimed water system. So that's very important and extremely critical in connecting these parks. So that testing will be done at every location. In general, all the facilities, per state statute and ADQ requirements, we will have signs notifying the public not to drink the water. We as a city do produce what's called A+ quality effluent, which is the highest grade effluent that you can produce. It is allowable for, say, human contact, but obviously it does not meet drinking water standards, and we wouldn't want anybody drinking it. And, oh, yeah. So, again, just to kind of give the board a perspective of the conservation effort, all of these parks and green spaces and the average gallons per day that they require in irrigation, the equivalent, say, to a residential home, we're estimating it will save approximately 425 homes worth of annual domestic water. So to kind of give you a perspective of the amount of water that all these parks actually consume, if that makes sense. So, or if you're thinking in acre feet, total acre feet per year that we're going to save by transferring all of these parks to reclaimed water is just around 200 acre feet a year of domestic water. So that's water that we're not having to put through our water treatment plant, store in our water tanks, and send through our water distribution system. That's water that's already been used that we're treating at our treatment plants, and we'll be sending it through this reuse system. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your time presentation. I was wondering about the affluent water when you mentioned drinking. I thought quickly, what about wildlife, things like that that run through the park, insects, bees, birds, when the sprinklers water produces a little bit? Has it been tested on those types of species to whether or not it's dangerous for them?
Well, what I before it leaves the plant, it goes through an ultraviolet disinfection system. So any living organisms in that water, all the bacteria, everything is completely killed. So there really is going to be no adverse effect on the health of any animals. If you tested, say, lake water versus this water, you're going to find more biological activity in the lake water than you would in this reclaimed water.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Abbott. As far as timeline goes, did you mention that? I saw the slide said by September of next year is when you want to be done?
Yeah, so the project time frame is actually, it's pretty extensive. It's 270 calendar days, so it's about 9 months. It's currently out to bid. We opened bids in 2 weeks, November 14th, I believe. So we don't anticipate actually starting the project until late December or just after the first of the year. That's why we have an anticipated September of 2019 completion date.
And just a follow-up question. How long, so it looks like Jack Hardy Park may be the only park where there's going to be, access will be limited. Is that fair to say? Or would the other parks have that too?
Yeah, I guess yes. During construction, Jack Hardy Park, there may be some limited access, and we will make sure that access is limited to the construction area. For example, the line that would tie the irrigation pieces together, that'll be excavated. Our requirements, city requirements, are that trenches are backfilled nightly, so we're not going to leave any open trenches overnight to create any issues for the public. So we'll make sure everything's cleaned up and tidy for the use at the end of the day.
Mr. Vaughn?
Am I on? Yeah, okay. A couple of questions. Is Wheeler Park user affluent? The one in the center right by Kmart?
No, it is not.
It's not. So they'd have no plans for that one.
No,
Okay.
the demand for that park is pretty low on the scale of green space versus the cost to get the water there for the usage. So for an example too, one of the areas that we looked at, and it's not to say we're not going to do that at some point in the future, but the landscaping along Highway 95. We looked at that, and the demand along Highway 95, because most of it's sparse desert vegetation, isn't really high in comparison to, say, what Rotary Park requires as far as gallons per day. And the value or the cost estimates to irrigate SR 95 is in the $1 million range. So if we're only going to dispose of a few, I'll say 100 gallons a day, if that, along the highway, to the tune of $1 million currently, it just doesn't make economic sense. So it's not to say we won't do that at some point in the future. As water, again, we want to be as effective with its use as possible. But these parks will be using all of our treated water that we actually create. So there's won't be anything left over when we're done.
Is there any plans? I know they were talking about putting a line, I guess a power line, where the power line is to go to Sarah Park. Have they got any plans or any engineer designs or anything? Because that's going to be our next big project as far as that, and they do need affluent there.
Yeah, Sarah Park, definitely, I agree with you. We've looked at it over many years, trying to get reclaimed water up there. Hasn't been cost effective to date. The idea of running a line through the WAPA easement has been brought up. We've had discussions with Dr. Wilson on that. He's looking at obtaining a grant to study the feasibility of that, and that will identify when and if that project comes to fruition.
Okay.
But currently there are no designs, there's been no engineering put towards building a line within the WAPA easement at this point.
Now you said, if I understood you right, that these parks, when you get this all done, will take up all of the rest of our affluent water?
Correct.
So we'll have no excess. We won't have to pump it in the ground.
Now, essentially on average, that is correct.
On average, okay.
Yeah. In the summertime, we actually exceed that, but we have the south intake to make up the difference. In the winter months, we will need the Vados wells, and if we have any wet days where we're not irrigating, we still have to dispose of that water, because regardless of what the weather's doing, we're still treating that. So on those days, we would still need the Vados wells for disposal.
Right, that's where they pump it back out of the ground, and
we are looking at a recovery and tying that into the system as well, yes. Yes.
Right. Are we still supplying the golf courses, some of the golf courses and that?
Yes, all of the golf courses are supplied with effluent, with the exception of Queens Bay. But the Refuge, London Bridge, and the nautical golf courses are supplied with reclaimed water.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good knowledge. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Did you consider the school fields in your analysis?
Yes, a lot of the school sites have been considered, and they're actually identified in the management study. Again, we prioritized demand versus facilities and what's it going to cost to get there. If we move forward with, say, the WAPA line, we're able to actually gravity feed and could gravity feed most of those school sites coming from that WAPA line. Again, it all goes back to cost, and right now, to pump that water up to those fields is very costly, and we don't currently have any excess to provide those fields. When you make a change from using domestic water to reclaimed water, you can't switch back and forth. It's a you're on or you're not on type of scenario. So.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Nuts.
Have you discussed with state parks about Windsor Beach possibly?
We have not. We have not. Again, only because currently with these parks, we're going to be using up all reclaimed water that we are making and have available. So we've been approached by other potential smaller users, condo associations that had interest in using reclaimed water as well, but because we don't have any available, we can't offer that up yet.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? No. Oh, Ms. Fun.
I got one more.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Fun.
Have they, I know in the average, sometimes they use it all, sometimes they don't, and they pump it in the ground. Have they considered putting a tank besides the one at Rotary Park there to help save it? A tank for just affluent water to pump it up like they do our other wells, or they pump the water up the top of the hill and let it gravity feed down. For affluent water, just one tank, or?
Well, it is again a part of this scenario. No, we have not. We've looked at a lot of different options over the years. Storage is a big piece of that. What we found was that in order to make this balance work, it was more cost effective for us to spend the money at Mulberry. A few years back, we had a project where we took our existing what's called a commingling pond at the Mulberry wastewater treatment plant. It was an old lined pond, and I don't recall the volume off the top of my head, but for sake of conversation, say it stored 200,000 gallons. The liner was in bad shape. We were losing a lot of water through percolation. We had a lot of vegetation around those ponds, and we were losing storage. Over 40 years, we lost some storage. So we went out and actually removed sludge and increased the storage potential of that pond. It was more cost effective to increase the storage of that existing pond than it was to go out and build and construct another concrete tank somewhere and then have to pump that uphill. So for our current needs, it's not necessary. But again, depending on, if you kind of envision the topography of Lake Havasu and the elevation of our North Regional Treatment Plant coming across the WAPA easement over to Sarah Park, essentially they're about the same elevation, give or take 10 or 20 feet. They're up in the 800 elevation range. So that's why that alignment's been looked at, because from our North Regional Treatment Plant, we can, with very little pumping head, we can actually send that all the way, almost by gravity, to Sarah Park. So no storage would be required because we already have that available at those treatment plants.
Right. The tank at rotary, it's going to be completely secured, right?
Correct, yes, it will be.
Mr. Keel?
I think in the relatively recent history, the city offered a tour of the water treatment and distribution system. Is that something, is that a standing thing? Is there, like, do we know when the next one of those will come around?
Yeah, Brianna, our water conservation specialist, she actually offers that tour. It's called Follow the Water. And I'm sure if you as a board wanted to go through that tour, working with Mike, we could get something set up. She would love to give that tour to you guys. And she'll take you to our water source, where our water comes from, the water treatment plant, and then essentially the water, our wastewater treatment plants.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Abbott? No? All right. Well, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you.
And a lot of good information there. All right. Moving on.
Scott, it is
Yes.
a public hearing, so we
Oh,
do
I'm
need to
sorry.
open it for the public.
I'm new. I'm going to open it up to the public. Comments? Thank you. All right. Back to where I was. Discussion and possible recommendation for teen break.
Okay. Have a little bit of information here regarding teen break, and then obviously any thoughts, ideas from the board would be taken into consideration. Teen break will run this year, March 12th, 13th, and 14th. It will be a similar all-day program that we had been running in the past. Ages 6th grade through 12th grade. The staff is meeting with several different school clubs and organizations to get their ideas as well of what they would like to see at the events. They'll be working on that over the next month. And then staff is also currently working on sponsorships and donations for teen break. So again, we're still in the very initial stages of the planning. But that's kind of the information that I have as we're starting this process.
Thank you, Mr. Keeney. Anybody have any questions for Chuck? Go
I
ahead.
do. Oh. Is that me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Mike, what kind of donations are you looking for? Just money or prizes or food or what?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Okay. Is some of it going to be held at like the aquatic center where they'll be able to cook, or like if somebody wanted to have pizzas delivered or something like that?
Yeah, the event will take place at Rotary Park again, and we talk with all the different food vendors in the city of concepts of how they can donate to the event.
Okay, so, and the other thing is you're contacting schools and stuff like that to get their ideas. I was thinking, I was going to suggest a survey of, to some of the schools, especially the high school and the junior high, to just kind of let them write down what they wanted, or maybe the suggestions that some of us had here, like a tournament for gamers or something like that, just to see what they kind of wanted.
Correct. Yeah, that's basically what the staff would be doing, going out with talk to some of the clubs and organizations. It's a little easier when they're in a group setting to be able to have those conversations regarding what ideas that they themselves want to see. We can all sit around and think we know what the kids want, but let's really ask them and see what ideas they bounce back.
Yeah, but when you talk to just groups and organizations, I wouldn't say more than, 50% of the kids belong to some kind of group or something like that. So you're missing 50% of the kids, basically. I think it'd be nice if you would just put a survey out. Maybe have do they still have homeroom in high school? I don't even know. The homeroom teacher could hand out and then get back a survey to some of the kids that don't belong to organizations and that.
Sure, we can look at whether or not the school district would be interested in allowing us to do that.
Just wondering if we may have the opportunity to kind of sit in on some of those events when the Parks and Rec staff is reaching out to some of those groups. Not, I think a lot of us, have daytime jobs, but if the opportunity presented itself, we may be able to make ourselves free to kind of hear. I'd love to have the opportunity to hear what some
Sure,
of those groups have to say.
I can send an email to the board as those meetings are set up.
Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
I got another
So
question.
I remember when we had a youth representative on the board, she talked about one of the biggest reasons or main reasons why some of the older kids didn't want to attend the teen break was because of everyone was mixed together. Is that being thought about in this planning? Because it's 6th through 12th, there's such a huge range of ages and interests.
It is something we're looking at, the feasibility of, is there a way where we can separate them a little bit with yet still some of the same activities without having to necessarily duplicate or where maybe one age group could be at an activity at a different time so that they're together but not together, if that makes sense, because it would be in the same area.
Well, maybe having activities that are more tailored to the older age group that you wouldn't offer to the younger age group, so there's still some novelty to it all. And how many slots did you say would be open, or how many kids could attend?
I don't believe we capped that.
Oh.
We've had as many as, I believe, 1,200, 1,300 in the past, so I do not believe that is capped.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yeah. What's the cost to this for the kids?
We're still working on that a little bit. It cannot exceed $40, but we're still working on, depending on what our expenses are. We obviously we don't want to make money on this event, so it would depend on what our expenses are, but the cost cannot exceed $40 per child.
That's for all 3 days.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Yasuchi, go ahead.
So in the past, was there a lot of attendance by 11th, 12th graders even?
My understanding is that has dwindled over the years.
Right.
I only had the opportunity to experience the event once, and I did not. The numbers of that age group were definitely small. So I think over the years it has kind of dwindled as different opportunities present themselves.
But this one is we're still opening it up for 6th through 12th.
Correct.
Regardless. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If we have no more questions, I'll open it to the public. And I think we're good there. All right. Next, we'll have the presentation and discussion on amenities at the London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park.
Okay. Over the last several months, we've had a few conversations regarding different amenities at these parks, so we kind of just lumped them all together to have an open discussion regarding particularly 3 amenities that have been requested or brought up by the board, and to see if there would be any recommendation to move forward on them. We're going to start first with the concept of lighting the channel. Here's a picture looking north in the channel. Sorry, my photography skills are not the best on my cell phone. As you can see, the channel is very dark. The walking path is lit on the side here, but the channel itself is black water at night. I did an experiment as requested to put rope lighting on the wall, the seawall of the channel. As you can see, it is not very visible at all. So basically what that told me is that this is going to be a much bigger project than originally thought of. I still think it is a very interesting and good concept and thought. I just am not sure that with it being as big as it is, it should rise to a high priority level of our department at this time. But that's kind of, for that particular area, I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you want to do each one individually, you want to wait and we can do all of them together, if we want to do comments in between.
Comments in between, work it that way. Comments on this.
I'd like to kick it off, Chairman. So is there anything that would prevent private industry from applying to be able to do this? If, you know, say one of the businesses that are right on the channel there, if they wanted to do some kind of rope lighting on that seawall to try to attract more business, is there anything that would prevent them from being able to do that, or to apply for that?
If they owned a business I did talk with the resort regarding this, as they own the property behind a lot of the seawall, especially on the Rotary Park side. It is something that they looked into to light their docks at one point. Just the cost benefit analysis, he said, did not work out. It wasn't going to attract any more business. So yes, they could look at in front of their businesses to do that. Would we entertain the idea of a business paying for all of it? It could certainly be something we would look at.
Okay, that's my only question.
Anyone else have? Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, as far as I'm seeing, we've got a lot more priorities to put our capital improvements to better use than this right now. I think that's way down on the wish list for me.
Chair. So I believe in tourism is a heavy factor. If we didn't have the London Bridge here, nobody'd be coming here. If we don't, vamp it up every 50 years and do something new and encouraging and stuff for kids, the lights are the future of entertainment. You've seen it in the Olympics. You've seen it in cities as I travel. Solar, I see these commercials. Solar power is huge in Arizona. Put a battery box up, run solar, turn the lights on and off as you want. We need to generate some kind of action down there because it generates revenue. Revenue creates money for taxes. It would just, hundreds of people would come down for the Christmas lights and the boat parade, and they're all locals. Locals don't go down to the channel without these lights. Kids got nothing to do. You could turn them on and off at will. The lights under the bridge are a perfect example of how nice it illuminates the bridge at night. They're square lights set 2 or 3 feet apart, and they illuminate the bridge. Without those lights, you can't see the bridge. Without the channel lights, the boats can't go through the channel in a safe manner. I've been here 3 years watching this. I think it's great for tourism. It's great for safety. And it may be way down on a list, but tourism is where that list starts. Without the bridge, without the channel, there's no need to build a community with parks and schools and everything you guys have done. Let's give something to McCulloch and keep his dream alive. Keep it building on his dream. Put amusements down there. Light the channel. And I'm just going to keep pushing everybody till we get something done, because in Chicago, I think the city did it, and that's the best way, is for a city to do it, because the city controls it. You don't have private vendors. Well, I can't afford my electric bill this month, so I didn't put my sectional lights on. So we don't want to go that route. We want people to be able to have safe environment down there at night. And also, that's it. It's just, I'm very passionate about this channel lights thing, because I see a lot of direction the city takes on different projects and stuff, and nobody's putting anything into that channel. to build tourism. Buses will come from Vegas, Bullhead City. People will come and walk the channel at night to see the illumination run, 15-minute show. It's a proven concept in Vegas. They have the waterfalls at the Bellagio, light up every hour on the hour. People visit the ferry every hour on the hour. They stand around doing nothing. So with that said, I just hope that I can convince some of you guys to get on my side and make a recommendation to the city council to look into possibly doing this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Mr. Keel?
Do we have a mechanism in place that we could cast a vote or get concurrence on a way ahead as a board on this matter?
Yes, I believe you could either vote to make a recommendation to city manager and council to move forward or to not move forward. Again, I do think it's an interesting project. It is something that we can always keep in our hip pocket. That, you know, one day when maybe financial resources aren't as tight, or you know, we have a plethora, that it can be sitting as a project that we then discuss.
I agree with Mr. Steve. I mean, I think the lighting's important. Is it important as what his passion's showing? I don't know, but I see where you're going with it, and I think it's a great idea. But again, with Mr. Keene, I think we have to wait till the time is right. Just my opinion. Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, the thing that Mr. Steve said, the councilor, the board member, said put amusement down there. There's no room to put any amusement down there. It's all privately owned, like when we used to have years ago, when the maze was down there and the shooting gallery and all those buildings. They used to put the big, huge light area, put up that was all lit up. And at that time, yeah, there was a lot of people that came here for that. But once that was gone, and the only thing you have there now is private land that they want to build a hotel on, and condos and that, there's really nothing you could put down there. If the city had bought the property, maybe, but as far as I can see, there's no place. You can't force these private people to put stuff or run stuff or anything like that. And I understand that he wants to have the city be in charge of it and pay for it, and solar, and that's all a good idea. But right now, I think building up Sarah Park and bringing in softball tournaments and soccer tournaments and pickleball tournaments, I don't care. I think that brings in a lot of value too. Just like if we had an excellent sports complex here. I wish that the drag strip had gone in and stuff like that. That would have been a huge thing for bringing in people around the area and from California, and people using testing their dragsters or cars and stuff like that. But it just didn't go through. And the city doesn't need to be putting stuff like that in. But to me, it's an excellent concept, and in that to make it like a San Antonio Riverwalk or Chicago or whatever. But right now, I can't see. I see the money spent in other areas to bring in large tournaments or races or things like that. And I had some ideas that I had forwarded to Convention Visitors Bureau, but never heard back from it, like getting the Red Bull airplane races here to the lake. I think that'd be a hell of a draw. But it seems to be that certain things just don't come about.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Biasucci.
Yeah. So Mark, my question for you is, are you looking for lighting so that it's just lit up, or are you looking for an actual show? Like which direction are you looking to go?
The lighting in the channel under the sidewalk, so it illuminates the water for boating safety, and the casino ferry. There's all kinds of action on that end, and then the south end. And then if it costs a lot, you didn't want to run it all the time, you can end up using it as a show. You can, you can have it on dim at night for certain times, certain events. There's a lot of boats out there. Sometimes you want to turn them on and off. It will. I'm thinking more of drawing. When I say attraction, you've got a basketball court there, you got pickleball courts. Those are attractions. The lights will attract people to come down and shop. We've got some businesses that are opening new restaurants down there. They're going to be looking for people to walk around at night. The ferry's open till 11 at night, maybe sometimes 2 in the morning. And it's just a dark channel walk. And I thought lighting the channel, the water, illuminating the water, like the Chicago River photos we saw, would be the attraction. And families could come down and sit down and watch the lights do what they do. That would all be determined. However, I think the best route would be get a survey from the city of the people of Lake Havasu. We put a survey on the website and see what the people think.
So,
Okay.
I guess right now, how far does the lighting go on the channel to illuminate the actual sidewalks and
The sidewalks are illuminated fully on
the
both
whole way?
sides. Yes.
On both sides.
Yes.
Okay.
Were you here when we saw those pictures
No.
of Chicago River?
Mm.
So, the pontoons have little neon strips at the bottom of their pontoon, and they make their boat glow in the water.
Right.
That's the effect I'm looking for.
Okay.
Along the under rim of the sidewalk, closer to the water, but under the sidewalk. So the light cannot be seen by the eye. You just see the illumination and the glow of the light reflecting on that sandy area where there is no light, and then the water. So it won't be a disturbance to the condos across the way. It won't be a disturbance to anyone. For example, at night, if you're sitting at the basketball courts at London Bridge Beach and you look across at the Kokomo's, and it's beautiful, reflective, all of his colors and these lights reflect on the water beautifully. I want to extend that feeling and that essence through the channel water on both sides. And whether you just, however you'd put your system and have engineers do it, but we're looking for reasons to bring people down, and give them stuff to do, stay out of trouble, and people shopping. And that'll bring people down there. People will come down and watch these lights, and
Member
Hey,
Smith.
thank you. All right, I just got back from Oklahoma City. They have what you call a river walk there. It's illuminated, like you said. There's people there till midnight. There's restaurants open. There's probably 30 restaurants that go along the river walk. People are out jogging at night because they can see. They can see the water, like you're talking about, and the whole thing's illuminated. It's a great place. The hotels around there all cater to the people that walk the river walk. And there's some really good places to have something to eat, like Earl's. Barbecue, best barbecue I've ever had in my life. And there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of business to reach out to the people that are walking it. To build a hotel just opened, the last month? They already got people walking down our walk. It'd be nice to really make a showcase out of it and attract more people, because they're going to go home to Dullsville and say, gosh, you should go to Havasu. There's a beautiful river walk. It doesn't cost anything. Go down there and have some good food. It's a good attraction. It really is. And the river walk in Oklahoma City is a very popular place. So, not a bad place to look and see what they do and build on it. Done.
Thank you, Member Smith. Anyone else? All right.
Just curiosity, I would like to hear we heard from everyone but two board members' opinions, or maybe if you guys felt like giving your input, that would be great, because then we would have had consensus from actually everyone at the board about the topic.
Ms. Pascal.
Are you asking, I think to get an opinion from each member on the board, there should be a motion made and to do it the right way. Otherwise, we may be doing a little straw polling. I don't want to get involved with that.
Agreed. All right, if we have no more comments, I would like to open it to the public, if the public has anything to say. All right, then we'll move on to the next.
Okay, I don't have any pictures for this one. Sorry. Our second amendment or amenity, item for London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park was we were discussing the lockers down in those parks, and I know Board Member Knotts had made the recommendation if it was something that we would look into. The possibility of more turning that over to a bid process and having a private company be interested in it. I will just say my piece of it, and then you guys can discuss. Since this item was talked about last a few months ago, I have not received any calls or comments in support of the lockers. I have, however, heard many people, as well as a few onions in the paper, that we should not be discussing such a matter as trivial as lockers. So I will now turn that over to the board as comments that I have heard.
Anybody?
Yes, I was talking with the city manager about something. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this either, but leasing a section of the park could possibly be done to a private party or a private company for lockers. So I think that would be a neat approach. And putting a bid out to somebody that says, "Hey, do you want to have this area?" There's a lot of areas that you can put that I noticed that I can maybe, lease some land, or somebody could lease some land from the city park. I don't know the laws regarding that, but then a private enterprise could set their lockers up there, bike lockers, kayak lockers, whatever they got. They've got them in Huntington Beach and Redondo Beach. And perfect examples for a lot of locals that come over here and a lot of tourists that come over here from California. Like, where are you guys' lockers? Well, maybe the city could lease some land. I don't know how to approach that angle, or if I'd have to make a recommendation to see if the Parks and Rec would be willing to lease land from the city parks to private enterprise for lockers.
Any other comments? Board members?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Busy.
I think I'm in agreement with the idea that if the thought of doing this would have to be a private thing. I don't think this is something the city needs to be involved in. The last thing we want is, our police department being tied up and that whole issue of, running these lockers if they're, people lose their keys and whatnot. So I think if this is even an option, I don't think the city should have anything to do with this at all. I just don't think it's a good idea for us. So.
Anybody else? Councilmember Lynn?
I have a quick question. Who monitors the soda machines down there?
Yeah, those are part of the business enterprise program that provides employment opportunities for the legally blind, which include vending on government property. That's a state law. So we don't actually have anything to do with any of the vending machines in any of our city facilities, including the parks.
Chairman,
Member Keo.
call me what you will. So would that business entity have the opportunity to bring in lockers if they chose to do so as part of their agreement with the city?
I believe and it's the state that has that, and I believe, yes, they would. Traditionally, in this process, we would be approached by a business that would be interested in the concept of putting them in.
Who asked to put the Pepsi and Coke machines and vending machines in?
Again, that's the Arizona Business Enterprise Program.
So those
It's
people,
a state law. Yes.
so they have to put those into your parks, mandated.
Correct. It's who owns them.
But
yes.
it's a state.
Correct.
So there's any way that you could reach out to them and say, do you have lockers? Can you put some of your lockers next to your vending machines for us? Is there a program they offer? Maybe they do, and we're just not aware of it.
It's something we could explore. Sure.
That would be great. Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Vaughn.
what parks has got vending machines in?
There are soda machines in, I believe, both Rotary and London Bridge Beach, near the bathrooms.
Oh, near the bathrooms,
Yes.
okay. I do know that the county had a problem finding somebody because they have the same thing in their, what do they call it, their city hall or where the supervisors meet and everything else. And they had a problem even finding somebody to take over those vending machines in there because the other guy had passed away. And so they had what happened was they got a guy from Phoenix that had did some stuff over there, and then he subs it out to a guy in the area, this area that's not blind, that goes up and services all the vending machines for the county. And that, so everybody's having a hard time with something like that. It works good in big areas, facilities like the county. They have several machines in there where people are in and out and going to different places, and they get a Coke or bag of chips or whatever's like that. But as far as you have to find somebody first that's willing to put the money up to build what they need, because it's going to have to be engineered, I'm sure, for the city's safety in that, and approved by everything like that. So you'd have to find somebody that would have some money to be able to put into it.
Comments? Mr. Keo?
So I'm not sure if this is a motion or a recommendation, but would it be feasible at this point to ask that Mike and his team reach out to that state entity to see if they're interested in adding lockers to their vending component here and report back to us at the next meeting?
Yes, I can certainly do that. It's not necessarily one company. There's several companies that participate in this program, so we'll see if they have any companies that do vending with lockers.
All right. So I'm not sure how to do it. How do we do that?
I can just do a consensus of nods of heads if that's something we're interested in looking towards.
I guess it doesn't hurt looking into it and seeing if it's available and then going from there. That's my opinion. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's fine. Just if you can look into it and contact that Arizona Enterprise and that, and see what get some names of people in the area, maybe.
All right, again, public comments on that part? All right, moving on to the third part, Mr. King.
Okay, the third part was supplying sunscreen at London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park. Doing some research, I came up with three different ways that I saw different entities around the country providing sunscreen. One was simply through a traditional vending machine. Again, the first right of refusal would have to go through the Arizona Business Enterprise Program. A second way is very similar, but it is a spray-on machine where you pay your money and hose yourself with sunscreen. And the third way is just simply dispensers that would be put along, I'm guessing the walkway or out in the beach that just simply dispense sunscreen that you would put on. In reading some of the cities that have done this, most of them apply for a grant through the Melanoma Society or Skin Cancer. The trouble is, once that grant runs out, is then finding another sponsor to either pay for the sunscreen or the city having to take on that cost. There are some concerns in our environment with the product being out in that sun and in heat. Sunscreen breaks down at a fairly low temperature. I think if you're out boating, most of us keep their sunscreen in our ice chest because it does break down quite a bit. So there's definitely some concerns, I think, of the idea of just putting them out into the park themselves. This method being free, there are some businesses down both sides of the channel that do sell sunscreen. I don't know if we would be interfering with some of their business as well. Would definitely be another concern. And then probably one of the least concerns, but it would be a liability if somebody did have a reaction to the product as well. Then the city is providing that, so it would be a liability on the city. So those are my comments regarding sunscreen dispensers.
Comments about the sunscreen dispensers? Anyone?
No, I just want to say thanks for looking into that. I was really curious. I appreciate what you did.
Mr. Keel.
If there are no more other comments, I'd like to make a motion or another recommendation on this matter. Let's make this a motion. I make a motion that we forego any further discussion or consideration of sunscreen in any of the public parks.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to say nay. Just because we might want it to come up again in the future, and I feel a little bit limited. Doesn't matter anyway. You have majority.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Public, any comments on this? No. All right. So we're at future agenda items. Anybody have any?
So there's a couple that we do have out there. I just wanted to make a note that we will start listing those just so that you guys don't think we forgot about them or are ignoring them. So there are a couple hanging out there that we will bring back at a future agenda. Is the CIP update, which we'll be getting next month after our meetings, and then the idea of, or the concept of lifeguarding our swim areas.
Anybody else have any future agenda items? Member Vaughn?
A question, if somebody thinks of something, how far ahead of the meeting do they have to contact you to get it on the agenda?
I would prefer a week just so that I can maybe send it out to the rest of the board to get consensus that that is an item that everybody would be interested in discussing.
Anybody? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm okay if the rest of the board doesn't feel like this is a worthy agenda item, but just an update or maybe even part of a staff update every once in a while about just the ongoing usability or functionality of the parks. You know, from time to time, at least I hear things, for example, the lighting at Cypress Park not covering the whole entirety of the fields, and just things that come up that you may be working on or we may be able to share some opinions about and if we could have that be a topic. So maybe just part of your staff report, but then I don't want to be limited if we do want to have some discussion on it too. So that's my suggestion.
And those can always start as a staff report item, and then if we get into a discussion, to move it to an agenda item as well.
Okay.
Member Vaughn?
Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say. Well, I'd like to maybe get a report on, I know we had that, survey, not survey, but that study, for how those, how much parks and all the stuff that we needed in the parks and that, and how far along are we to, say, complete that, it wasn't a master plan, but a plan that, to bring us up to snuff for, that survey that we had.
The field needs assessment?
Right.
Is that what you're referring
Right.
to? Okay. Yes, I can certainly bring that chart and show where we're at with the addition of Cypress.
Anyone else?
Yes, Chairman.
Mr. Vaughn?
So I have one request for an agenda item and just 3 kind of reminders for some updates. I'd like to get monthly the agenda item monthly on teen break, just kind of this, where we are on teen break, and with the reminder that you're going to let us know and when the opportunities present themselves, that we can go out with your staff to kind of work with some of those student groups or school groups. I'd like to know if we could get a date together for that water field trip, and then we also were trying to work on a date for an executive session that kind of fell apart in October. So maybe we could link those 2 together and get get a majority of the group to buy in and knock those 2 things out at once. And I had one more. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Future meetings, Sherry?
The future meeting dates are November 26th and December 24th. If we would like to have a discussion on the December meeting?
I make a motion that we either pull it forward or cancel it.
What? I guess we'll just open it up then. It's
Discussion.
I guess cancel or move it to a week prior. Is that what we're looking at?
Chairman. I was looking at Ashley, talking to you. Sorry, sir. Is there a so could we? So maybe do we have the opportunity to say that for sure we don't want to do the 24th, but maybe we will withhold the decision on whether to cancel it or change the date at our November meeting? Would that be?
You certainly.
Oh, why are you
Too many mics on.
Oh.
Yes, we can certainly wait and make that decision at our November meeting. Obviously, December gets very crunched with travel and family time. So, but yeah, we can wait until after our meeting in November and make that call.
Then we need a motion on that too. No, just, okay. Then we'll,
Chair, wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
So are we scheduling a retreat date, or are we going to take care of that later? Or are we not? But I mean,
I would still like to, without a doubt. It's whether or not we do look into November to do that. I had a aha moment this morning when I climbed out of bed and before I got in the shower. We do have a city council retreat in January, and my thought was maybe it would be better to wait until after that retreat to see if there's any direction given by council that would be of benefit to this board as well, in direction of moving the city forward in the next few years. But that we could definitely still have one in November. I'm not saying that is an off the table thing. So it was just kind of one of those, I wonder if that would be a better opportunity. So definitely interested in hearing what the board would have to say about that.
As far as canceling or not canceling the meeting, I think everybody would be in agreement that December 24th wouldn't work anyway. So I would like to at least put a motion in for December 17th, because with the CIP being discussed, the chances of us even having a meeting that won't be canceled, a lot of contentions there. I'd like to just stay informed as we keep going through the new year. This is the season where a lot of stuff starts sliding by and we don't hear about it till it's too late, and then we feel left out, even though we're just volunteers, so we can't really do much about it. But I just think December 17th, let's just write it in, and then we can decide on November 26th whether or not we want to cancel that meeting. Does that make sense? Okay.
So waiting, or you want a motion to change it to the 17th, December 17th?
We will also need to check on availability
Right,
of rooms
right.
and the weather.
Potentially-
Exactly. So let's not do
Look
a
at-
motion of
okay.
that would end up
We'll
being
just-
negated of
Right.
not being able to do it that day regardless.
Okay.
I just had a feeling that December 24th is going to be canceled anyway. It's, so, I mean, if there's something, or another day, or,
So we're good on
yeah.
November 26th, and then we'll, at that time, make a decision on December. Everybody in agreement?
Aye.
Hold on, I'm in agreement with one caveat that when we meet in November, you guys have information on available dates for a December meeting.
Everyone in favor? Okay. All right. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I got one more question on Mike.
Oh, okay.
I guess sooner or later, but does the city still have any city buses that that are available?
We do still operate Havasu Mobility.
Okay, and I was wondering if maybe I'll bring it up in November, but the possibility of maybe after the first of the year, maybe in February or something like that, that the board get together and go on a bus tour of all the parks in the city on a Saturday or something like that to actually, because there's a lot of parks that I've never been to. I've never been to Avalon, several parks in the city that I don't even know about. So
Sure, we could definitely
maybe
work on
look up in
on a tour.
maybe possibility of something like that if everybody's would like to do it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
Need a second on that?
Second.
All right, and we're done. Thank you.